sugar, spice, and everything nice. These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect little girl. But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction, Chemical X. Thus, the Powerpuff Girls were born! Using their ultra superpowers, Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup have dedicated their lives to fighting crime and the forces of evil!
Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm talking about 3 Cartoon Network Christmas specials, kicking it off with the Powerpuff Girls in Twas the Fight Before Christmas. And the Powerpuff Girls celebrated its 25th anniversary this year. I haven't discussed the show itself yet on the podcast, but I did talk about the movie for its 20th anniversary in 2022, since that movie came out in 2002. And as I mentioned when I talked about the movie, my favorite is Bubbles of the 3. And I'm pretty sure I said this too, that even though they're technically the same age, and it's so easy to forget that they're in kindergarten, but that they're literal badass kindergarten superheroes, because they don't seem like they're in kindergarten. It's so funny. But I'm sure when they were the whoop-ass girls, they weren't in kindergarten. Or maybe they were, I don't know. But what's interesting with Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup is that even though they're the same age, like, Blossom clearly is the oldest, Buttercup's the middle, and Bubbles is the baby. It's just, like, that dynamic with the 3 of them. Even with the whole thing with them, like, decorating the house, and then they're fighting over who gets to put the star on the tree, and then Blossom just comes in, like, puts the star on the tree, just like the know-it-all leader, and obviously Bubbles as the baby, and so cute and adorable, and then Buttercup just the tough one, as is in the closing theme song and all that. But, yeah, and of course, obviously, Tom Kenny is the narrator, and the mayor doesn't talk in this episode, but you see the mayor at one point with his footsie pajamas, and just, like, Miss Bella, I'm just already exhausted. The mayor is ridiculous, though. He's so funny. Gosh, he's like the Monopoly guy. I love the mayor. Just, as always, an incompetent politician, Why does that never get old? It just sadly does not. It can never get old. And obviously the whole gag with Miss Bella, that you never see her face, because the whole joke is that she's sexualized, but then the whole point is her biggest asset is her brain, and you never see that. It would be funny if, like, she has, like, a huge nose, or, like, something ridiculous, like she wasn't actually what you would just think she would look like this attractive woman, but then, I'm sure that would be funny, actually, but the whole point is, like, you never see her face, because that's just the whole running gag with that. But so obviously in this, the main villain is Princess Morbucks, and what I have to say is that I actually appreciate that, really, with all the villains, because as I was thinking about it then, with all the villains in this show, they're just bad guys. There's nothing redeeming about them whatsoever. Because in the case with Princess Morbucks, she's just this absolute, she's like the epitome of a spoiled brat. When she's like going on and on about how her daddy buys her everything, and then, she just wants to be a Powerpuff Girl, and that's the whole plot of this episode. She switches the naughty and nice lists. And again, how did Santa not check it twice? What Bubble says, you must have not checked it twice, because literally, wouldn't he find it suspicious that a girl who's been on the naughty list is just now all of a sudden on the nice, one child on the nice list, and then all the other children in the world on the naughty list? It's too funny, whatever. And then obviously she ends up on the permanent naughty list. And that was funny seeing the names. You see a McCracken, you see a Faust. I wonder if that's people actually related to them that they put in there, just so they purposely use their last names either way. But it's funny, just nods to little visual Easter eggs like that. I have to say too, generally speaking, about this show, because what stands out to me now is how you could feel the influences of classic cartoons like Looney Tunes and classic Hanna-Barbera cartoons, with the fact that it's so action-based, this show, but also with the visual gags, and especially with the sound effects, how the sound effects sometimes just hit home with the story beat or amplify a joke or something. what stood out to me was the whole part when Bubbles finds out that they all have coal in their stockings. And that part was just so sad when she's just like crying and then she looks in her sister's stockings and also sees coal. But the whole part when she tells Blossom and Buttercup and then she's shaking her head and you just hear that sound effect and then she's nodding and then looking up and that sound effect, all of that stands out to me. I find it cute. And then even at the end when it's reversed where Professor's so excited jumping on their bed, it's girls, time to open presents. And then they're go to bed, Professor. And then he's all sad and slumped. He walks out and just those sound effects too of him all sad. And then he brightens up when they're wait a minute, what are we talking about? It's Christmas. And it's still dark, not even the sun rising. So it must be 3 a.m. or something that they're just opening presents now. And that's interesting, too, because this whole thing takes place in the same night, so Christmas Eve. So the kids hadn't even woken up to see, they basically saved Christmas without everyone else in the world knowing that they had coal in their stockings and stuff because Princess Morbucks switched to the naughty and nice lists. And Princess Morbucks reminds me a lot of Angelica Pickles, too, and I mentioned Angelica when I talked about, in my previous episode, if you listened to that one. Because Angelica obviously is a spoiled brat, but Angelica is different because she's an antagonist of the show. She's mean and cruel to the babies, but deep down she still loves them. That's her cousin, Tommy Pickles, So with this, it's just nothing redeeming about Princess Morbucks. She's just a brat, and that works though because it's you could point to that character and be see, it's someone you don't want to be to kids, So it makes sense, and it's just you're not going to be rewarded for this behavior of just being an absolute brat. And just her wanting to be a Powerpuff Girl. And again, the visuals of it all, when a big chunk of the episode is them flying to the North Pole and then seeing just their streaks of pink, yellow, green, and blue. That's really cool and really pretty. And just funny moments too when Blossom's even I got coal. I could see Buttercup, but me? Oh gosh, poor Buttercup gets a bad rap. And I like Blossom though, but then Blossom, obviously her biggest character flaw is that she's a know-it-all. So, and then Bubbles is a crybaby, basically. So it's they're all obviously badass superheroes, but then they have their faults, too, and their flaws. But then also they have, their own individual superpowers that the other ones don't have, Bubbles with, I guess, that sonic scream. But I know also specifically that she could talk to squirrels. And then Blossom, so she has her ice power, which I know that was a specific episode. I don't know what Buttercup's one specific power is that the other girls don't have. But obviously the big thing is that they can fly, and they're just, badass and can kick anybody's ass, And their design is so cool. I think I talked about this, too, I mentioned this when I talked about the movie. But, I've always tried to draw the Powerpuff Girls. They seem so simple because it's basically just, circle for the head and the eyes and rectangular bodies and then their limbs, but it's not as easy as it seemed. I still haven't for years I tried to draw the Powerpuff Girls and I always be oh my god, wait, the eye is wrong, not the right size, whatever. They're tougher than they look, literally to draw. That's too funny. But this show is just so much fun. And Santa in the Powerpuff Girls is interesting too because he's just not this jolly guy, and obviously makes sense in the story because he's upset that all of the kids are naughty, supposedly. But again, he didn't check your list twice, Santa. And then it's interesting how he has a magical nose, and when he gets rid of Princess Morbuck's superpowers, which she could have died then, but she ends up she's just because he gets rid of her powers, then she just falls into the snow, But, yeah, she's a complete brat. Well, maybe burst out laughing then when she's asking everyone, am I naughty? And then, the guy pretending, oh, we're going through a tunnel. She's no, we're not. I'm in the car. But what really made me burst out laughing is when she's there's no way I'm naughty, whatever, going on and on about it. Then she opens her closet door, and this avalanche of coal pours out. That, I was, burst out laughing with that. I did not remember that. That was so funny to me. Oh, my gosh. Gosh, she's ridiculous. And she really, she's just, shrieks all the time. Just ugh. She really is just a complete brat. That's all there is to it. But it just is very funny. And, the elves, I don't know. It's just a fun special. But, yeah, it's, of course, the Powerpuff Girls save the day once again. So it's cute. And then, even Santa's wait, you're the Powerpuff Girls? So that explains all the floating and flying and stuff. That's too funny. Gosh, he's a fan of them. I really like that. So they're so adorable, obviously. And, of course, the professor. I just love that they call him the professor because, he's the professor. They never say dad or anything, even though that's his girls. But, he created them. I don't know. I love that bond with with the girls and the professor. They're so cute. They're such like a cute family. And obviously, no, like there's you see a brief part with Jojo. I love Mojo. He's my favorite of all the villains. And obviously he's like the big villain in the movie too. I just love the Powerpuff Girls. They're so adorable, obviously. And I know it's getting rebooted, like officially with Craig McCracken again at the helm, which is good. And Foster's Home too, but I think it's going to be geared more towards preschool age. So that's interesting. I know there's actually, because I just saw a trailer for it the other day, there's a movie called If, written and directed by John Krasinski. And it's similar to like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, where a girl that can see imaginary friends, but then were abandoned by their kids who grew up, so it's just to find them new homes. That seems really interesting. But anyway, I digress. Just remind me because of Foster's Home, which is a really fun show too, obviously. So, I just love the Powerpuff Girls. They're so adorable. Had their 25th anniversary, and so we'll see where the reboot goes, like a new version of the show. Who knows? But, as long as you got Tom Kenny announcing everything, the citizens of Downsville, like, you gotta love that just with the narrator. And, like, there's obviously all the rhyming in this special in particular. And then, of course, once again, the day is saved thanks to the Powerpuff Girls. And then you see them with the little Santa hats. It's so cute. So I love the Powerpuff Girls. They're so adorable. And it's a really fun special. And so now let's head over to Peach Creek for Ed and Eddy's Jingle, Jingle, Jangle.
Ed and Eddy!
Alrighty, now it's time for Ed and Eddy's Jingle, Jingle, Jangle. This is one of the few shows, I'm pretty sure I must have said this when I talked about this series several years ago now at this point. And that's one of those episodes where I just it's basically me quoting a lot of the episodes. I could barely get through the double D lines. It's hilarious, honestly. But anyway, it's one of the few shows that I distinctly remember how much it would make me burst out laughing as a kid, watching it with my siblings and with my cousins. And then revisiting it as an adult, it still makes me burst out laughing. It's so creative, this show. Just the uniqueness in that it just has 12 characters throughout the entire run of the series. And only in the series finale is there one other character, of course. But that's just so brilliant. Like, one other character that we see, I should say, because there's references to their parents and stuff. And even in this, just a glimpse of Santa, but still, it's just the 12 kids, which is so brilliant in and of itself, in my opinion. And in this in particular, really in the entire show, but especially in this special, you can feel the influence of a Charlie Brown Christmas in particular, because Danny Antonucci has said with Johnny, for example, he knew a kid growing up who would always have a blanket just like Linus, and then he said, well, so instead of being like Linus, he made it a board of wood instead, And even just in the beginning of this, with Johnny catching snowflakes and that Christmas snow, that feel of just like in Charlie Brown Christmas, which I also happen to have rewatched today as well. And I've talked about that special back in the early days of this podcast. That special is just so well written, I have to say. It's it stands the test of time. It's utterly amazing, obviously. Charlie Brown is a phenomenal gift to the world. Oh my God, Charles Schultz, that can't be overstated, the influence Charlie Brown has on so many shows. Hey Arnold's being another big one as well, in terms of shows that I grew up with, of course. But I just love this show. I love these characters because, obviously, since it's so character-driven, this series, and obviously, it's plenty of slapstick and all that good fun. Also, the jazzy soundtrack. What's amazing about this show is that you can study it in terms of character-driven writing, as I said, but also just for the love of animation, certainly. It's just really a truly special show, and I see why Danny Antonucci does not want to reboot it in any way, shape, or form. It's brilliant the way it is and how it ended. There's no need to revisit it. It's just let it stay what it is, perfect in this sense. So even though I selfishly would love to see an iteration of these characters nowadays, maybe age them up a little for a one-time thing, but it's not necessary. It's a wonderful series. And again, Double D is my favorite, honestly, because Double D is just so pure of heart. And what's funny is that Double D and Ed in particular, they kind of have this odd couple dynamic because they're so opposite from each other. And then Eddy's kind of in the middle. But they also kind of have like this parent-son relationship a little bit, like kind of Double D trying to guide Ed. I just find that really funny. That whole exchange like just makes me laugh when, where is it here? I like went to the script. Well, it's not really a script. It's like a transcript of the episode, but here it is. So Ed says, I feel all fuzzy inside, Double D. 'Tis the season, Ed. 'Tis. The warmth, Ed, that fuzzy feeling, it's the spirit of the holiday. Spirit. From here, Ed, my udder. You certainly know how to tax one's patience, Ed. Like, my God. And then, like, a callback to it when Double D's like, Christmas comes from in here, Eddy. And like, he lays his hands on his chest and he's like, that's my udder you're touching. I was like, that's so ridiculous. I love that. So dumb. And then later when when I did this last time, when I discussed, this is just reminding me, when I talked about Ed, and Eddy, back several years ago in this podcast, I kept mixing up like Eddy, Double D. I was like, oh my goodness, it's ridiculous. But then, they got the same name. What are you going to do? But it's later in this episode when Ed says, just a couple of guys wearing dresses on Christmas Eve, huh, Double D? All is not lost, Ed. For this angel all is not, I'm reading it and I'm like still messing up. All is not, in respect to voice actors, they could like read things cold and perform and oh my goodness. Anyway, all is not lost, Dad, for this angel still has one more trick up his robe. I promise not to peek, Double D. Ridiculous, But it's just very cute. Obviously, just the whole through line is Eddy kind of just like crashing other people's Christmases because he's upset that he got clothes for Christmas, which is a great callback to like that earlier season episode when they just have Christmas in like summer, like Christmas in July, basically. I'm pretty sure the episode's called Fa La 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 Ed or something. And I just love the part in that one. Like I didn't rewatch, but I just distinctly remember, give us cash or we'll stop singing. Fa La La. So stupid, my God. But like Eddy had said then that all he ever gets for Christmas is clothes. So then he's like upset. All he has is clothes. It's like socks and underwear. Kid shouldn't have to see that, Double D. It's like ridiculous. Poor Double D is just like the one responsible, mature kid who has to kind of like guide everyone and like the one intellectual in like this sea of, simple-minded, especially Ed, certainly. Like I kind of wondered, besides Double D, who's like the next smartest kid? I honestly don't know. Maybe like sometimes Naz seems like she is, but then also she has like kind of the ditzy blonde tropes at times. Sometimes Kevin, but like he's just like a jock. I don't know. Johnny certainly is just kind of in a plane of his own in terms of, he's really interesting, Johnny. And obviously Rolf. I love Rolf. He's just hanging up the meat. You gotta love Rolf with his traditions. Sarah and Jimmy, too. Like, Jimmy's so sweet. He made this whole gingerbread house decor. And then, of course, Eddy ate it all. And then he calls up Sarah. You gotta love, like, Sarah always protecting Jimmy. That's the one thing I will say, like, even though Sarah's so obnoxious, honestly, and so, like, mean to Ed, too, like, for no reason, just to be, like, an annoying little sister, I guess. But, I love that she just protects Jimmy at all costs. So, like, there's, like, her one defining golden trait outside of being a brat, really. Well, she's not really a brat. She's just very like a loudmouth. And I've said this too when I talked about this show, that as a kid I did not really care for Eddy because he was so loud and obnoxious. As an adult now, I appreciate that, like, despite all of his character flaws, there's still vulnerabilities deep underneath the character that's especially explored in the series finale. Like, basically how he does all that is because he wants kids to like him. So, like, he acts all, like, a big shot, but really he's just, like, insecure deep down. So that's, like, relatable, And that's why, like, when he goes through actual character growth, it really stands out. And so in this, I remember first watching this, and I don't think I watched it at the time it aired, but it was, like, years after the fact. I remember when first watching it, that moment when Ed... That's right, I was like, wait, did I get that right? When Ed puts the little Christmas bulb inside Eddy's pocket without him knowing. I was like, remember thinking to myself, okay, so there's like a moment, how is that going to come back around? And then of course when Eddy later on in the episode, when he's just like downtrodden through the snow and then he reaches into his pocket, he sees the broken bulb, he replaces it, and then Double D's so proud of him. And it is just like a very simple, selfless gesture. And then of course, like, so he learns his lesson in that moment. It's like, oh wow, so it's not about the gifts you get under the tree, it's about like the warmth in your heart and all that stuff. And then, like, when Santa drops off all the presents, he's like, oh, there's a gift for everyone. It's all mine, ridiculous. But, he learns his lesson briefly. But, he's still the same old Eddy. And I also just really love the whole through line with the Canker sisters and how, like, they're, the visuals of they're, like, the three kings following the North Star. Along the way, they find mold, francs, and cents, and fur. That's brilliant. And then, of course, Double D pointing out, well, this is certainly a Christmas image right here, because he got then Eddy lying in a manger as if he's baby Jesus, and then Double D is the angel, and they're the three kings presenting the gifts, and and then obviously Ed is like a shepherd, and there's all of Rolf's animals, and it's just like so simple yet beautiful, like this lovely homage. And that's rare to see, like, these religious, references in kids media. That's just really sweet. And also, like, the singing at the end, too. It just feels like, again, a lovely homage to the Peanuts Christmas special. So I just really love this show. It's just so fun and wacky, but at the heart of it are just these friends. Like, it's just really great. And, like, they have such distinct personalities. It's just so creative and fun, this show. My goodness. It's just really a fun special. Like, I really like the Valentine's special too in this show. Maybe I'll do an episode talking about some Valentine's specials, because that's just a fun one when everyone, like, falls in love with each other, like, comically over the top ridiculous stuff. I don't know. But yeah, and also the Halloween one's great. Any half-hour specials were great. Also, that episode when this is what happens, like, when I watch an episode, then I recall other episodes, of course, but that episode when trying to figure out who framed the Eds or something, like, there's that boot print, and then, like, basically it's a whole misdirect, so thinking it's Rolf, and then it turns out to be Jimmy. That's, like, really brilliant, like, basically getting back at them because, like, Eddy had ruined his friendship day or something. When you stub your toe and it hurts you, no friends are there to help you, because the series ends on that song again. It's so great. I don't know, this is just such a really fun show. I gotta say it 3 times because Ed, and Eddy, but yeah, so I don't know, I love the characters. Love Double D, especially. He's always been my fave. I mentioned this too when I talked about the show, but my all-time favorite episode, still to this day, is Mirror, Mirror on the Ed, when they all dare each other to act like one another. And, like, then they're, like, doing impressions of each other, and it's just ridiculous and so much fun. But the series finale is fantastic, too. Because, like, when they really hit with the emotional moments, it's really, they do an excellent job. But mostly what stands out is just all the humor, all, like, the ridiculous stuff. It's just so funny. And the characters and their relationships with each other. And what also made me laugh then was Ed literally dragging the entire chimney to his, like, right there in his room, and, like, leaving gravy cakes and milk for Santa. He's just, like, so excited that Santa's, like, gonna arrive. My goodness. Ed too, with, like, his innocence. It's so sweet. So, oh my gosh, it's just, what a fun show. So now let's head over to Sector V for Codename Kids Next Door, Operation Naughty. Alrighty, now it's time for Operation Naughty. Ninny's almost gonna do greatest holiday this year. You gotta love that every episode is an acrostic, spelling out different words. Or I guess technically they could be acronyms too, because acronym is just like abbreviated words like NASA, for example. So technically both work in this situation. Whatever, I don't know. But I had forgotten, so like with this Christmas special in particular, I had forgotten the whole reveal where at the beginning when you see supposedly numbers 1 through 5 crashing Santa's workshop and all the elves and taking down Santa. And I thought to myself, wait, are they doing this because Santa's evil or something? I forgot what the reveal was. Then when it turns out that it actually was the delightful children from down the lane, I was like, oh, okay, there you go. And those kids are so creepy. My God, they're just, because the fact that they talk in unison with kind of that monotone voice, and it's the same voice actors. I always can distinctly hear Cree Summer in it, but they're just so they're creepy. Gosh. And the whole running gag, well, not gag, I guess, but like recurring storyline, I should say, of the codename of the kids next door trying to get their cake, because like there's Operation Caked, like 1, 2, 3, 4, several episodes with that throughout the series, and even in the series finale, Operation Interviews, so that's too funny. There's so many great villains in this show, obviously, and I've talked about this series already several years ago. My main thing, like, that I always loved, and even in this special too, is like numbers 3 and 4. They're so cute. And I love that they end up together. That was like the main thing. Like when the finale aired, I remember like I was already in high school at that point, and I was like, I gotta watch it just to see if numbers 3 and 4 ends up together. And if they don't, that's just a travesty. And thankfully they do. So cute. And also numbers 2 and 5. But this is another show that people want to see be brought back in some way. And I know there was the whole thing with Galactic Kids Next Door. I'm pretty sure there's like an animatic or something on YouTube. I guess it was supposed to be a pilot that just never was fully produced, but it's still like the same voice actors, and it was written by Mr. Warburton, the creator of the show. So who knows? Because like that's the whole great thing. There's so much great world building in this show, and like with the operatives of the kids next door, and how it expands like not just around the world, but like there's the moon, obviously, like the moon base, and like, again, all the great villains just fighting adult tyranny, and the teenagers too. Like, they're great villains, they're great antagonists for the kids. And it's too funny. But so in this, where it's just Kooky gets upset because, like, no one got her a present, but she's especially upset that number 4 didn't get her a present because, of course, she got him one. And then, like, the reveal is great when it turns out it's a like reindeer rainbow monkey, and then he's like, you got me a rainbow monkey? Like he's so like offended, or like, that's too funny. It's interesting because this is similar to the Powerpuff Girls Christmas special, where the delightful children are turning all the other kids on the database, making them naughty. It seems like they're naughty and that they're only good kids, like the nice kids. So then all of their presents are turning into coal. And then when Kooky then takes over the sleigh, and then she's like, well, it's like, I'm the only one who gets gifts for all my friends, so I deserve everything. Like, she turns then evil, and then, like, number 4 has to put a stop to it. It's so funny then when Santa is like, you have to go in there and help your friend, and then he's like, me? Are you sure there isn't any other way? He's like, well, if there was, you think I'd be sending you in there? Like, poor Wally, he's like not the brightest bulb, but he's so funny. He's my favorite. I've said that, like, when I talked about this show. Number 4 is my favorite, then number 5, because she's amazing. She's hands down like the one who has the most common sense. Like, she's clearly the smartest. Like, yes, number 2 is smart in his own ways to a degree, like, mathematically he's smart and stuff like that. But, in terms of just, like, sheer common sense and, like, kind of being ahead of everything, it's number 5, hands down. And so she's fantastic. She's my second favorite character. Then I'd say 3 is number 3, of course. And you know what honestly had just occurred to me watching this? Like, every time number 5 talks in the third person, what just occurred to me is, they should have made her number 3, because then, like, number 3 talking in the third person. I was like, oh, there you go. There's an idea right there. But obviously she's just number 5, somehow rolls off the tongue better. But that's just still, I'm like, that would have been clever, like 3, because like third person. But whatever, I just still thought that occurred to me watching this. But, so yeah, it's just cute then when he's like, number 3, I got you a gift. And like first she's like, so, because like she of course has her temper on her, to say the least, number 3. And then she's like, oh, you got me a gift. And then it's French fries, like his fries from earlier. And she's like, oh, this is the greatest gift you ever gave me. Well, it's the only gift you ever gave me. Which, like, that's cute. She would have been happy with whatever he had given her, but that's too funny. They're just very adorable. Like, even, of course, with, like, number 5 teasing him. Like, yeah, number 4, don't you like number 3? I've said this too. Like, they kind of have, like, a brother-sister dynamic, number 5 and 4. Like, it's cute. And so, I don't know. It's just, like, that's pretty much all I got to say. I realize I really, like, went through this quickly, but I just find number 4 and number 3 so adorable. They're just, like, very cute. Because, again, like, I love the world building in this show, but mostly what I especially love is just, like, those character dynamics and stuff. Like, obviously number 1 as the leader and everything. So, yeah. It's cute then, too, like, at the end when then, like, they apologize and then like the elves, basically, because they made a mistake thinking it was them who had done that, but obviously it was the delightful children. But then number one is like, well, what happened? What about our treehouse? And then like you see that it's basically they're just like skating around an ice rink, kind of like an homage to Rockefeller Center, like, you know, with the big Christmas tree in New York City. So that's just very cute. It's funny. And also I like how this plays out like a comic book, like reading through it. And of course that's Tom Kenny reading through it. So, you know, that's really great. It's just a really fun show with such great world building and ridiculous, hilarious, mostly like ridiculous villains in this show, and so much like creativity and stuff. So you gotta love the Kids Next Door. And as always, Kids Next Door battle stations. And with that, that's going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. Be sure to check out storytellingsaga.com. And as always, feel free to send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by emailing me at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. And that's going to be a wrap for 2023. And I've got a lot of great things in store for 2024, so stay tuned for that. A lot of great guests and interviews, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.